Hey everybody, welcome to Analog Stick Radio, home of the Day One By. I'm your host Mitch, and as always, I'm joined by the dastardly duo themselves. I have to my left, Christopher. How are we doing today, buddy? How was grad school?
Oh, it was great. I'm on fire.
You're on fire, showing us some taco sauce. That's great. That's good. We'll use that later. I'll let you know when. Dakota, how are we doing down there, buddy?
So awesome. Jawsome, in fact.
Jawsome. Wow, that's like one letter better than awesome.
It is.
One letter better. So let's talk about what's new with you in games. I feel like a lazy fuck because really all I did was play Hearthstone. I have the Bit Culture's monthly fireside gathering coming up at the end of May, and we're going to be streaming that. So if you guys are interested, take a look because I'll be streaming that with my good friend Chris Pilati. And
not me.
And yeah, no, not this Chris. And I'm just trying to get used to the game, play a lot of it, see what decks are relevant, make sure I know like the names of cards almost immediately, and I want to be able to give a lot of insight into the game.
Doing his homework.
So
I'm just
That's not
homework.
lazy. That sounds like research.
It is. Yeah,
it is.
diligence.
It's a lot of research. I just hate when you watch like a game on Twitch and like the casters have no idea what they're talking about at all, and you're just like I'll hear people when I watch Magic streams that are casting, they'll say things and I'm like, that's just wrong. You're not even reading the card. You can't do that. Like, you're just dumb. And it's frustrating because it's like, you guys are supposed to be experts. Otherwise, why the hell are you on my TV? Like on my screen?
Yeah, totally.
So,
maybe for their entertaining purposes. Some people like to watch casters because they're just funny.
Usually you have one of each.
To listen to.
Usually you have the play-by-play guy who's supposed to know the game, and then you got the what do they call him? The color caster?
Yes, color. I think that's color.
That sounds
sweet. If it's
racist.
not, that's what we're calling it right now.
I think that's what they're called. The color, something like that.
I can't remember.
I'm with you.
Well, see, so Chris knows a little bit more about the game than I do, so he's going to be our play-by-play guy. I'm going to be the color caster, but I don't just want to be one of those like Valley Girl dumb color casters.
I really hope that's what it's called. Holy God.
So that's what I've been doing. I'm playing a lot of Hearthstone. The game is really fun right now. Standard just came out, and decks are all over the place. So that's what I've been doing. Chris, what have you been doing this week in gaming?
It is called the color caster. All right, cool. Color
this
commentator.
Week I wanted to play some. I wanted to try and beat Bulletstorm. Oh my God, Bulletstorm! I don't know why I thought about that.
God,
that's a great game, by the way. I wish I could talk about that. Bulletstorm is fantastic. No, Enter the Gungeon. I wanted to try and beat it. I did not, but I am now consistently getting to level 4.
Oh, Chris,
oh wow!
So. And that's it. There's 5 levels, so I'm like consistently getting to level 4. So I'm going up, moving up. I also played a little Spelunky. I wanted to play a bunch of roguelikes this week. I played Spelunky because that was in my library, but I don't like Spelunky. And I've been like listening to people like because I got it a while ago, a long time ago. I got it in Korea because Big Lou and I were there. We had nothing to do, and we're just like, let's play like a co-op game, something that we could, do real quick and easy. And we were trying that, and I was like, it's kind of boring. And so I'm like, you know what? I've been playing a lot of Enter the Gungeon. Maybe I'll play another roguelike. Spelunky. I just cannot get into Spelunky.
Weird.
I don't know what it is, man. It's just so clunky to me.
Really?
More like clunky.
That's called
That's
tight,
what I
man.
thought.
Controls
in my
are
head.
tight.
Those are all the words together.
Yeah.
But but instead of that, so then I got over that, and I decided to try a new roguelike game that's out there. It's free to play, and it's pretty janky. It's called Starbreak. Mitch actually
Is it called Starscream?
Yeah, Starscream? Break Stars?
I could not remember the name of the game. With me. Every time I tried to mention it, I called it something Scream. I just kept adding Scream to whatever it was. This game is fucking weird, Chris. I've never played a game like this before.
It's a really crappy, like, it reminded me of, like, mid-2000s games that would always be for free. Like
in a good way,
clones, or? Almost. Like, they're fun for about a weekend, and then you're over it.
It's an online multiplayer roguelike. Like, that's exactly what it is. And
that sounds awesome.
It's strange,
It's fun to play, and like when you enter a level, there's like 30 other people with you there. So it's like you get into this level, and then there's like 30 people running through, and you're all trying to blow up everything. When you play a character, you play this one character, and then when you die, you lose all the gear on you. You go through and you like get different guns, get different armors, and things like that, and you level up by how far you got. When you die, that fills up your experience bar. And that lets you unlock new kinds of shells or like new characters. There's like 5 characters or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's pretty fun. I mean, it's free, and it's Starbreak. If you want
Sounds
to play
kind of like
something that's
Realm of
free,
the Mad God.
Starscream.
Like what?
Realm of the Mad God, I think it's called, and that's like a roguelike multiplayer.
I played that for free also.
Yeah.
Not like Realm of the Mad God. Think of like Contra mixed with a roguelike mixed with an
it's
MMO.
A Contra roguelike. That is the
Except
exact
you have
way
health.
to
Like
describe
you don't just not instant dead.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Dakota, what's new with you in gaming?
New with me in gaming, I played a new game this week that just came out called Stellaris.
Oh, I've been hearing a lot about that.
I
have been playing a lot of that. It's a 4X game. Don't ask me what the 4X's stand for. Exploration,
Excelsior?
Something. That's all I know.
That's why we're friends. This right here. You just witnessed it in real time, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it. It's the same genre that Civ is, Civilization. That genre. But it's in space. You make a space fleet. You take over a solar system. Many solar systems, actually. You take over a galaxy. And so me and my buddies have been playing quite a bit of that. Hours-long games, like 4, 5, 6 sometimes. I can't play those long games. But some of my buddies, they played like 8 hours in one day or something, and I think it was a single game. It's fun.
Was that like... That's multiplayer? Like you have to be there at the same time?
Yeah.
Or is that just like the single player?
That's multiplayer. I mean, the game plays exactly the same whether or not you're playing with other people or not. It's not turn-based. It's simultaneous play. So you're like researching, teching up, building armies, kind of in an RTS kind of fashion, but a little bigger than that.
So what would happen if somebody left?
The AI can take over. So I've done that a couple times. I'm like, I am bored / bad at this game, so exit to menu, and then AI will just take over your spot. So
what happens if you both leave?
Then
it's like the AI playing itself until one of you comes back.
It's just like that Matthew Broderick movie.
I don't know that.
You don't know
I don't
that?
know what movie you're talking about.
War
Nobody
Games?
knows what movie you're talking about.
Is it called War Games?
That's not a real.
I know that there's one guy in
You're
chat
making-
who will
you're
know the
making
name
things up
of the movie, so we'll get to it in like 15 seconds. Anyway, the game is good. I'm not good at the game, so I'm maybe not the best person to kind of like fillet it. But a couple of my guys are really into the genre, and they cannot get enough of this game. And it's getting really good developer support, which is the best news of all. So they're going to have many updates in the next coming months to improve it based on feedback. So Stellaris, if you're into 4X, it's definitely a good game. The movie I was talking about was not Jurassic Park.
Right, it was not.
One of our listeners maybe thought that.
But much like the dinosaurs, this intro has gone extinct. Let's move to the main topic.
Oh my God.
It's not even funny.
Wow.
It's not funny. It's too soon. I know. It's too soon. So, all right, this week, our main topic, we're going to be talking about, wanted to take it a little bit easier. We talked about religion last week. So we're going to talk about sequels. And we're going to talk about every possible sequel thing you can think of.
Every sequel ever?
Yeah, we're going to talk about all different aspects of sequels.
All right, let's start from the A's.
Let's buckle in.
Let's start from the A's.
Start from the numbers.
And Airplane 2.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Oh, damn. Those are
Okay, so we're going to talk about game sequels. And obviously, if you don't know what a sequel is, it's a game successor, essentially. But usually they kind of go in order. I know, it's hard to define a sequel.
He's breaking new ground right now.
There's so many things.
I think what Mitch is trying to say is we're not just talking about like Uncharted 2, where that's like a narrative sequel and a direct game sequel, but we're going to cover those kinds of sequels. We're also going to cover like franchisey stuff like the Tales series and Final Fantasy. And then we're also going to touch on a little bit on spiritual sequels like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne. Not even the same name, but we all know that those are made by the same developer and basically the same game.
Right, exactly.
I think it's also important to mention, we had the episode on remasters, remakes, and reboots and things like that. And I wouldn't consider those sequels, which is interesting because when you have a Final
Fantasy... No, that's not really a sequel.
Yeah, that's not a
Final
sequel.
Fantasy VII, it's not going to be a sequel of Final Fantasy VII at all.
Right.
It's just like a different same game.
I will bring up one example later that has some weird crossover with a remake or remaster, but it is a true sequel too. So.
Well, let's get our feet wet first, Dakota, before we jump in the pool here.
Okay.
So let's talk about like what makes a sequel. Like very briefly, very basic question. Like what makes a sequel? Chris, you want to give me some thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think sequels, like talk of sequels, have been big, kind of since. I guess I'm no movie buff, so I'm gonna say since the '80s, right?
Okay.
Because like I feel like that's when like blockbusters were really part of mainstream culture. Maybe the '70s. Like I said, I'm not a movie guy, so somebody send us emails and tell me how I'm wrong. But I feel like that's when you saw a lot of sequels coming out then. Right? And a lot of talk about sequels. And I feel like sequels get a really bad stigma. And this has translated from the movie genre over now into the games, right? Like, so I think when we think of a sequel, we want there to be a continuation of a story. Like what makes a sequel is like a continuation of the story of the genre, not of the genre, of like maybe the world in some way. And you usually expect it to be bigger and better than the other one, which can kind of cause a kind of trap.
But see, I think that's wrong. I think you shouldn't expect something bigger and better. And I don't even think you should expect a continuation of the story. I just think that.
So what do you want?
I just want the same. I want the same storyline, not storyline. I want the same setting and the same characters. Maybe a new storyline. I mean, if you think about, I'm going to use an example like Uncharted. I guess you could essentially say that is a quote unquote continuation of the storyline. But it's really not. Like it's almost like a whole new storyline. Like that whole storyline from Uncharted 1 wraps up, and then you start a whole new storyline, and that whole storyline starts and wraps up. And yes, we're still following Nathan Drake, and we're still, kind of doing the whole archaeological like looting and searching for treasure type thing. But it's a whole different story. It's not there's almost very little to do with either one other than like slight crossovers for like maybe characters or like a crazy plot point, but for the most part, it's its own thing.
I think that's what Chris meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much. I understand.
You guys are agreeing, just disagreeing on the word to use to describe it. A continuation
of a storyline could be like actually having a whole nother like
a whole arc. I understand what you're saying.
like Harry Potter 1 and Harry Potter 2, like that is an actual continuation of the storyline. Whereas like Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 2, those are just kind of two different stories in the same setting.
Okay.
I feel, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying that's kind of my thoughts on sequels is they don't necessarily have to be a continuation of the storyline. I think we just expect that, and we expect something bigger and better. Honestly, I just want the same characters in the same style game. Like think like Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers 2. There's pretty much no storyline continuation. It's not really bigger and better.
I think that's an interesting example. Like those Mario games, like how you can consider them sequels, even though they don't really. It's sequels in a game sense in its purest form, because you can't really have a movie sequel that doesn't follow the same story or the same characters on to what they're going to be doing following the previous movie. In a game like such as Mario, there's no storyline other than the princess is in the castle, you beat up Bowser and you saved her. Like you have to change all the game mechanics, not necessarily a story. And I think that's a really good example of a game sequel in its purest form.
Right. Right. All they did was add a couple more things, make the levels look different, and it's pretty much the same exact mechanics, though.
Well, they add different. That's the thing. They add different mechanics, like the Tanuki suit lets you fly around. They added like the little frog suit. They added new ways, like the keys in the overworld. Like you're actually moving around that overworld, picking. Like I'm thinking, in particular in Mario 3. Nobody wants to talk about Mario 2. So you know what I mean? Like it's more than just like updated graphics and like fresher looking. You have to add you're adding a bunch of stuff. I really think that's really integral to game sequels.
Yeah. Sure. What about you, Dakota? What thoughts on what makes a sequel?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what type of sequels that we're talking about. That's kind of where we were at the top. If you're talking about like a narrative sequel, obviously you want some sort of narrative continuation, but you don't necessarily need to. I don't think, generally speaking, I agree with Chris and you for that matter, where you don't need to have some sort of direct narrative hook that comes on the ass end of its predecessor. Maybe in Mario's case, there's no connective tissue whatsoever. It's almost like Mario's strange. It's almost like, you know, with Zelda, there are like these arcane maps of which titles go where in the timeline that may or may not be true, because I don't think they've ever been confirmed by Nintendo. It's like
the first one is supposed to be the last one.
Yeah.
Like the very first Zelda ever made, that's apparently the last
Yeah,
one.
Okay. And it's like, come on, you know, like really? Like, do you think they had any fucking clue like back in NES Zelda days? Of course not. I mean, it's all arbitrary. Like
this I don't 30 years in the making. Like
right. There's no intent, I don't think. No narrative intent.
Only a couple, like for instance, Majora's Mask. That one is after Ocarina of Time.
Right. And there's like
same character.
Yeah, there's very real connective tissue between.
Yeah, there's a couple of them, but for the most part, you're right. It's just kind of wishy-washy all over the place.
Yeah, and the same is true of Mario, I think. I mean, I haven't done any of my, you know, hardcore video game investigative journalism that people did with Zelda, where they've kind of mapped out. I wonder if people have done that with Mario, not to my knowledge, but I guess my point is,
I'm not sure. Actually,
I don't think you need to. I don't think you need to with video games. I think that having, in that case, what we're really talking about is a franchise, right? That has sequels in it, but there's no narrative that needs to be maintained or continued or whatever. And I think that's in a way that kind of sets video game sequels apart from movie sequels, because movie sequels, I think, don't need to, but have a much greater need to connect a tissue in a narrative fashion in a way that video games don't necessarily need to.
Yeah.
Depending, again, like you said, on the game.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
For instance, I'd imagine like the Devil May Cry series, you would think like, oh, there needs to be a continuation of the story. You made this character, and then, but at the same time, like the Dante type character, he's like fighting these demons. He has this mother-father demon blood story, and he's got a brother, but they don't bring that up at all in the second game. Like,
yes,
the first game has a storyline. The second game was absolute trash, hot garbage piece of shit. And then the third one was like fantastic again.
So
like,
we decided we were not going to do our worst, our top 3 worst or bottom 3 worst sequels.
Yeah.
Spoiler, that was going to be on my list. Devil May Cry 2.
That was 100% on my list.
Yes.
Definitely.
So why? What about, so let's kind of dive in. What was it about that game, Devil May Cry 2, that makes it stand out in your mind as a poor sequel? And kind of like extrapolate from there, and what can we say generally speaking about video game sequels?
Well, we were talking about what makes a sequel. So I mentioned that in a game sequel, I want a continuation of the story in some way. I don't need it, like, for instance, like the Mario games, but in like, at least in the Devil May Cry, they create this cool character, this cool world, the persona for him. So I'd like to see that advance in some way.
Right.
I'd like to see what other kind of hijinks he gets in Demon World, right? So they kind of did that, but the thing is, they set apart the next game aside in its own standalone universe. Like, they put the next game on this island, right?
Yeah.
They update somewhat the gameplay mechanics, which is something else I want. I want, you know, new updated gameplay mechanics, but
you don't want to play the same game twice, for sure.
What?
You don't want to play the same game
twice.
Yeah,
I want to play the same game twice, and at least, you know, add in a couple moves. But the way they did it was like they made it, I think the weapon, I don't know, they didn't balance it correctly. That might be a whole other thing. But they made it a standalone thing that didn't really matter with the story of the first one. You didn't care what really happened on this island because it wasn't, you felt like it wasn't kind of pushing the character forward at all. Kind of stagnated him in the same place he was narratively from the first game.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I'm going to pull up a recent movie example. I felt that same way about like the Avengers 2, right? The first Avengers was like really awesome. It brought all the characters together. The second was like, Tony Stark kind of messed up a little bit. Let's fix his problem for a whole movie. Like that. And I felt like it didn't really move anything forward. That's what I feel like sequels kind of do. They're like, oh, we have all these great characters or this awesome character. Let's make everything big and bold. But let's kind of make everything big and bold in a way that we didn't expect to make a sequel. That we're just kind of going to make a story real quick for them to act in.
Sure.
I don't know if that's a good way to explain.
No, totally. I've seen people kind of like lodge the same complaints about Hotline Miami 2. Hotline Miami.
I never had a chance to play the second one.
I haven't either, so I'm not speaking from experience. It's just something I read. But you guys played Hotline Miami 1?
Yes.
Fucking awesome game, right?
Yeah.
I saw right up on 2 that was like it just suffers from the sequelitis where it's just like more of everything, and it's not, and that doesn't make for a better game necessarily. It's like more bad guys, more weapons, more room in the buildings, and it's like okay, but then now it feels quite different because of all of these minor changes to the gameplay formula, and maybe that's not a good thing. So.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like you can do a lot more with that. I feel like that, like you said, sequelitis is like a real thing, and it's a term for a reason. And I think that we see that a lot with a lot of video game sequels, that they kind of just like phone it in.
Sure.
But let's talk about. So we mentioned a couple of different types of sequels. But like, what would you say warrants a sequel? Like, do all games need a sequel? Like that's an interesting question. I was trying to think about that today. Like, when does a game need a sequel, Dakota?
Sure. God damn. It's a tough question. I think that's probably what we'll talk about for the next 25 minutes, right? I don't think all games need a sequel. I guess let me start there.
Right. That's the right answer. So you're 1 for 1.
Ding, ding, ding. I win. Right, yeah. All right, let's wrap it up. We're done here.
Shut it down. Great podcast.
Good job, guys.
Cultures later. Bye.
So when do you warrant a sequel? So there's a number of reasons. I guess narratively, when there's more story to tell. If you're a storyteller and you have more to say about these characters, more interesting things to say, then you make a sequel. I think though with a video game, there's also an onus that you have to have some sort of gameplay evolution. I don't, as you said, Mitch, don't want to play the same game twice. So maybe another reason why you might warrant a sequel is if as the developer you can look at your first iteration and go, you know what, I can improve upon that. I can make that game better. And so then you should go and make that game, but make it better and, slap a sequel, number 2 on it. I think those are great reasons to make sequels.
Yeah, I completely agree. And your last reason is kind of almost ties into one of my reasons, which was like newer hardware. And we've seen that a lot through our lifetime. Like, you go from like the N64 and you play like a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater game. And then you go to like the PlayStation and it's like, whoa, wow, we have a lot more options here. Memory capacity is way better. Graphics are way better. Let's make another Tony Hawk game. We have a lot more we can do with this now. The graphics are going to look better. The technology is completely different.
Sure.
Like the controller schemes are much better now. So I think that like the advancement of technology also warrants a sequel. But I don't know how well that's going to carry over, because I feel like it's almost like a kind of like a bell curve, like where we've seen like a spike in technology and now it's kind of starting to round out.
Sure, yeah, and you mentioned something really interesting, control schemes. I like that. That's not something I thought about, because that gives you a totally new interface to work within explore the framework of a game. I as a counterpoint though to the graphics thing, consider this like maybe people consider some of the SNES Final Fantasies or Zeldas to be better than anything that came afterwards, that the new graphics didn't necessarily make for a better game, which is an interesting thought. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think that there's things to be said about that, especially for Final Fantasy. I think maybe Zelda, it's more contentious whether or not oh my God, what's it called? The N64 game. Zelda. Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time?
Jesus Christ, I almost said Temple of Time.
Did you just forget Ocarina of Time?
I did.
Get off the podcast.
I did.
I'm
out. I'm done.
You're done.
It's really embarrassing. I don't know how I could associate with you.
I think that most people consider that to be definitively the best one. I think.
Zelda, Ocarina of Time? Yes.
Yeah.
Not there's the camp who thinks The Link to the Past is the best.
And so
one,
to my point, that's to my point exactly. Like some might consider the SNES entries the best, despite the fact that it's 2D and has much, smaller graphics. I'm not going to say worse because it's kind of appropriate for the console, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? What do you think warrants a sequel?
What I think warrants a sequel? Well, I think a little bit different than you guys. There are games that I'd imagine that you don't need a sequel for, but I feel like a lot of these developers create games in mind with sequels in mind. Nobody wants to create a one-off game anymore. They want to have jobs. So they want to create not just a game that you play. They're not going to create like they're not creating the like a Bejeweled game where it's just like, all right, got some diamonds, If we never make anything else, that's great. Let's go on to make another puzzle. Like
Right.
they want to create a world. They want to craft a world.
A world.
So they want to
exactly.
tell stories within this world.
Yeah.
I think this is a really interesting time to bring up the sequels. I don't know. We didn't really talk about it in the show, but I think it's great because Doom 4 just came out.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about it.
Doom, but yeah.
Doom 4, that's a game that didn't necessarily warrant a sequel, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no story to tell. It's a space marine on Mars who starts fighting demons.
Right.
But the fact that they're able to make it bigger, they're able to they're knowing what people want. Apparently, we talked about Doom last time and thought it wasn't doing well. But
don't spoil.
I'm not going to spoil.
Christopher.
I'm not going to spoil the metal bet.
Metal bet. Oh my god,
that's perfect for Doom, man. It's the metal bet.
It is.
Freaking.
So Chris, real quick, I just want to jump in real quick. Is this a sequel? Like, is Doom? Because it's not Doom 4, it's just Doom. And is this a sequel to Doom?
Or a reboot?
As far as I'm concerned, it seems more like a remake.
Is it a reboot? I thought people were calling it Doom 4. To be honest, I haven't really looked.
Yeah, the title is just Doom, technically.
Yeah, the title is just Doom.
Okay, people have been calling it Doom 4 online, so that's why.
Just to distinguish it, right?
Okay, it's the fourth Doom game, but it's just called Doom, and from what I've gathered, it's almost exactly like the original Doom. I've watched a little bit of gameplay.
At least the single player, because the multiplayer is all completely different.
Well, yeah, the multiplayer is all completely different.
Yeah.
The single player
Different.
acts
Did they ever have?
obviously,
But
it
Doom
acts exactly like the original Doom.
Doom
so
3 wasn't it called Doom 3?
Probably.
That
I don't
was
know.
also pretty much, it was a restart almost of the game. I feel like Doom is in a weird position.
So they're
where
doing
every
what
game
Spider-Man did. They tried to reboot
is the
it.
same-
It fell on its
every
fucking
game
face.
is the same game, but I feel like it's still a sequel because, like I was saying, with Doom, there is no story. It's kind of almost. I feel Doom is almost in the same boat as Mario. in a weird
exactly.
way,
Yeah, I was thinking
where
the same
there's
thing.
no
agree.
reason to further the story. You just have to up the graphics, increase the violence, and you got your sequel.
Yeah.
Add more blue keys, obviously.
So I think what warrants it, it depends on the game, right? Like a warranted. I don't like the idea that there's a new sports game, like a new football game every single year. I'm not a sports game guy.
That does not warrant a
To
sequel.
me,
Yeah.
that does not warrant a sequel. I
Right.
think maybe every 2 years they could update it or something.
Well,
Yes.
So,
And
one thought I did have on this. One of the reasons that they do this is to update the player base because sports fans
That's
like
a bunch
playing
of
with
bullshit.
there's okay, hear me out, Chris. Put yourself in the mindset of a sports fan. You are addicted
don't
to
know.
sports, you stick to football.
This
Your
is my
team
phone
gets
finger.
your team gets a new, quarterback, whatever. When you play Madden, you want to play with your team's new quarterback. So they got to make a new one because the roster is going to change every year.
In an always online world, though,
Yeah.
most of the I think the Xbox One can't be turned on. Like you can't play a game unless it's connected to the internet.
yeah.
Chris, this is a recently always online world, and I feel like prior to it being an always online world, that's what they did. They released a new Madden every year. It's like, oh, this is this year's Madden. We're gonna update the roster.
Mitch,
And
I
so
live in the
now,
now.
and now,
Okay.
hold on, Chris. Now they're doing it. They're doing it almost as like because that's what we've always done. We've always made a Madden every year, so we're gonna make another Madden every year.
And we
agree
always
that
make
it's
a
absolute-
bajillion with a new Madden
Yeah,
too.
that's what I'm talking about.
Who's gonna say? Who's gonna walk into the boardroom at Madden Studios, whatever that's called, and just be like, guys, do you guys want to stop making them like $1 billion every year? Like, we should probably stop making $1 billion every year, right?
Yeah. Right.
I don't want to make any more money. I don't know where to put it. My house is completely full of money. I need to stop.
And the fact that we can recognize that, like the fact that we perceive like Madden as just a cash cow and Call of Duty, right? We have this, everybody knows, like conventional wisdom says that sports franchises and Call of Duty are just cashing in. So that tells us that there's some sort of threshold for the amount of quality improvement that we expect to see in a sequel, right? Otherwise we wouldn't feel this way. So yeah.
My thoughts on Call of Duty are probably a little bit different than most people's. I don't think it's a cash cow. I feel like they're completely different from the Madden series because you at least see Call of Duty trying. Like, it's not succeeding, but it's trying at least. Like, this latest Call of Duty,
To be different, you mean? Like it's succeeding monetarily.
They're trying to move forward. They're not just literally giving you the same game with
this
different
one
names.
is an extra special. It seems like for the first time, at least to the layman, the casual observer, for the first time in years, it really did kind of take a left turn. But barring this most recent sequel where there's jetpacks and wall jumping and stuff, it's been kind of the goddamn same for like 5 years.
So here's the thought process behind Call of Duty, and I really think that the developer really listens to their player base, and they just keep giving them what they want. The problem is the player base has no fucking idea what they want. So they get Modern Warfare. And they're like, oh, I love Modern Warfare, but I want something different. So they give them World at War. And they're like, well, I fucking hated World at War, but I really like zombies. So they're like, all right, here's Modern Warfare 2 with zombies.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm done with Modern Warfare. Like, give me a different title. So they release another Call of Duty, and that one sucks. So now they're back in Advanced Warfare. It's just like the player base needs to make up their fucking mind because Call of Duty.
I'm glad we have you with the Call of Duty insight.
Well, my dad and I used to play a lot of Call of Duty,
right on.
And a lot of my friends played a lot of Call of Duty. It's just like I feel like everybody's jumping on Call of Duty's back, but they're trying, man. They're trying really hard.
I don't think you can even classify the Call of Duty gamer because I feel like Call of Duty is the twilight of video games.
Oh, God. Like we're calling it out, Chris, are we? Okay, all right, we're calling it out. That's fine.
It's the game that like people who don't play games are like, wow, I want to get into that. As Twilight is kind of like the fantasy romance novel for people who don't like fantasy romance novels.
Right.
I don't know.
You're not quite ready for the leather and lace.
50 Shades of Grey. I got you.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. That kind of game to me, it doesn't warrant a sequel in that it doesn't change up maybe the most recent one it changed up the formula a lot. I can respect that they at least try. Okay. But at the same time, at the end of the day, that kind of game is just purely a cash cow that does not really warrant as many iterations as it has.
Well, to be fair, they up the gameplay every time.
That's what I said.
They up it every time. Without a doubt, no matter what everybody says, every succession of Call of Duty has been better gameplay-wise.
Okay.
So they are at least, like I said, that's why I say they're at least trying. But so since we're bashing...
Right.
We're bashing sequels. Let's just go down this list here. You're already talking about some of the ways that a sequel can go wrong, Chris. What are some of the other ways that a sequel can just go fucking horribly wrong? And try, if you can, because I'd like to hear it, try to use Devil May Cry 2 as an example.
Well, a sequel could definitely go wrong if they do shit that wasn't in the first one, right? In a bad way. Like right. Devil May Cry, for instance, man, it's been such a long time since I played that second one. But I remember they added another character, which would kind of be cool, but they added a character that nobody ever saw before and did things that weren't what made Devil May Cry fun, which was the combos and stuff. Like,
sure.
Mm-hmm. I don't really remember. But
and the demon slaying.
And the demon slaying, absolutely. Yeah. But another thing that makes a game... I'm thinking of Mass Effect 2. For some people, they liked the first Mass Effect because it was more kind of slower paced and more dealt with the world in kind of in an RPG fashion. Mm-hmm. A lot of people liked Mass Effect 2 as their favorite Mass Effect because it was more action based. It was much more much faster paced than the first one. And so for some people that made it enhanced, and for others they didn't like it as much because it wasn't kind of the same game. So I definitely think beyond not going on with the story, changing what people are expecting to come from the game is might be more dangerous in the reboot section opposed to the sequel. But
I think you're spot on. I had that same thing written down, Chris. Like, the sequel is in a tough spot because if there's too large of a departure from the original, you're in trouble. People are going to be unfamiliar with it. They're going to be uneasy. They're like, oh, that's not what I expected. On the other hand, people also have this expectation that it's different. So it has to be different enough, but not too different. And
different, but not too different.
Yeah, and that's a very narrow range.
Window.
Exactly, a very small window, a small target to hit, right? That an original, first entry in a new franchise does not have that onus at all. And so that's something very unique to the sequel, and that's probably why they're criticized so heavily, and also why they can be quite divisive. They can either be pretty fucking good or very ill received.
I'm going to give a personal example of a game that changed a little bit and made me not like it as much, which is kind of, I don't know if this is blasphemy, but I did not like Portal 2 as much as the first one.
What? Get out. I need a whole new podcast. I need a whole new fucking podcast. This is
interesting. So I think when Mitch sits back down, he'll tell us what he thinks. I think that Portal 2 improved upon Portal 1 in like every way possible.
I need
gameplay.
Okay, there's going to be applications for a new best friend. We have. I'm so mad at you right now, Christopher. I can't handle
Hear
this.
me out.
So yeah, tell us why.
I loved what they did with the story. I love Cave Johnson. I love how they actually started making this original world where you're kind of stuck in a box with an AI, and they made it an actual facility with real people who used to run it and things like that.
Right.
It was fantastic. I enjoyed the use of the gels as a new mechanic so that you could like utilize different ways and make the puzzles different. What I did not like, and this was a implication of them having to move it to console, there were way less momentum puzzles than in the first one.
Okay.
What I mean by that is
it's like an oddly specific criticism.
Yeah. Well, I know that's what I'm saying.
They took out my favorite thing. I hate it.
Well, that's a good reason. They changed what I liked about the first one.
Yeah, that's
the
fair.
first one, they had they not only had like puzzles where you had to like try and figure out, oh, how do I get this like orb through the thing, and like figure out like a more like more like cerebral puzzle.
There you go.
There were puzzles with momentum-based physics where if you like jumped through a hole and then you fell through a different hole, and then you had to shoot a portal real fast so that momentum made you shoot really fast, and then kind of like do a quick twitch to come out of a different way. You're flying all over the place. They cut that out. A lot of those, if you play through both of them, you'll notice they cut out a lot of that fast-paced twitch momentum puzzles because people were now playing on the consoles with controllers, and they found that people weren't able to control that in the way that we were able to when it was just on PC.
Is this speculation on your part, or you've read things?
No, that I've read. I don't know the particular
I'm not
article,
gonna make you.
I did read that people were feeling they weren't able to do a lot of the momentum puzzles.
Makes
and
sense.
If you play it, you will notice that was my biggest feel. When I went through the game, I was feeling like this isn't as fast as the other one.
Okay.
Like the puzzles were great, the characters were fantastic, always are.
Yeah.
But they took away the part of the first game that I loved, that I felt was like so intuitive, like so unique rather, to Portal, right? Like any game can have puzzles where you got to think about putting a thing in the right spot. Like you just got to shoot the puzzle in the right spot and kind of jump into it. But there wasn't a game that had you flying through a portal really fast and kind of like shooting to fly through the thing at different directions. That was very unique to Portal, and they didn't have enough of that.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree that like that was the.
That should not bring it down to the point where you're just like this game.
Well, you guys are making it seem like I hate the game. Like it's still a fantastic game. I absolutely love the game, but I was disappointed in that they didn't have as much of that. Like it wasn't giving. I don't give it a perfect score in my mind's eye, because they took out one of my favorite parts that made the original so unique and interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean,
they added so many more things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I can get down with the idea that the speed was the thing that made it truly unique. I think the base concept, as slow as you could ever do it, is the most unique thing about it. And like,
it still is unique, but the fact that they didn't up that. Right? Like they had a lot of those speed movement puzzles in the first one.
Yeah.
They didn't increase that. They didn't make anything. They didn't add that with the new puzzle mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
They would have had a gel thing where you're using the white gel and like flying, or I don't know, whatever one made you go really fast, like flying across and like doing something interesting and bouncing off stuff. Yeah.
All right.
But you know what I mean? I don't.
Sure.
But they did have those puzzles. Like they definitely
had some, but
they just, Chris, what you have to understand is, like, and this is almost like the trap of, I don't want to play the same game twice. Like, yeah, they could have had all those games, but then it would have been Portal 1, the second one.
But beyond,
right?
no,
Like,
that's
it
what
would
I'm
have
saying.
been
Beyond saying, like, you guys are focusing on my fact that I didn't like this. I enjoyed the new puzzle aspects, but if they would have used what they had done well in the first one, mixed with the new aspects, that's what a sequel is. That's what warrants a sequel. That one increases. And the fact that they didn't use what they had done well in the first one.
I disagree. They did use it. There were a lot of gravity puzzles in the game. Like 100%. I played this game like 4 times.
Of course they had gravity puzzles because it was Portal, but not the momentum.
They had momentum puzzles because there was a specific one I can remember where you're using the gel and you literally had to slide through a wall and come out of another wall. And you had to literally like launch yourself. And it was insane. I was like, holy shit, I'm using the gel and I'm launching myself out of a wall. This is fucking ridiculous. Like that game was The only reason that I like Portal 1 better than Portal 2 is because Portal 1 came out of fucking nowhere and blew my mind. But if not for like the posterity's sake of Portal 1 being Portal 1, Portal 2 I think would be better.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's my opinion.
What Mitch, what else do you think makes a sequel go wrong?
When they like when they try to just like entirely flip the script. I never played this game, but I remember seeing it. There's like a Bomberman game that just decided, and then like that Pac-Man game where they just decided to like take it out of its 2D space and make it this like 3D like walk through the world, and like it was so completely different from everything we knew about Pac-Man or everything we knew about Bomberman. It's like a whole new take, and it was just fucking terrible. Like you just ran around the world as Pac-Man, but you didn't do anything that reminded you of Pac-Man at all. Like I guess you picked up little like pips or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was not good. It was not good at all. And it was because they shook the formula up so much. It was like you said, Dakota. It was so different that it was like it wasn't reachable. You know, you want to play a Pac-Man game because it's like, oh, Pac-Man, I played that in the arcade growing up.
Yeah.
But you know, now you're just walking around a world that has nothing to do with Pac-Man anymore.
Yeah.
You've just kind of like forged this storyline out of nowhere. It was, I don't know.
I feel you. It's like it's that question that sometimes reviewers will ask, like, who's asking for the sequel? Like, who wanted the sequel? And it's like in the case of Pac-Man, it's like who was really clamoring for the sequel to the classic hit Pac-Man? It's like I don't know anybody that was like, man, you know, it'd be sweet, Pac-Man.
I mean, they had Miss Pac-Man, and that I felt like that moved it up a little bit.
Back when it was fucking relevant.
Sequel.
Yeah.
That's a great sequel. And then they were like, let's take Pac-Man and put him in a 3D space. And it's like, not so much. Not so much. Nah. Dakota, did you have any other ones for like when a sequel can go wrong?
Yeah, for me, just kind of the opposite of what I said about what makes a good sequel or what calls for one is when the narrative does not warrant a sequel. And I guess that you have options in that case. So as an example, I'll say The Last of Us. The Last of Us is a great self-contained story, and they're inevitably going to make a sequel because fucking bucks on the table, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But that story does not warrant a narrative sequel. It has a perfectly awesome conclusion that you don't need to tell us any more about any of the characters involved there. So maybe what that means is, and hopefully what that means, fingers crossed, is that The Last of Us 2 is going to have like an anthology approach where it's maybe different characters in the same universe. So I think you can kind of...
We can only hope.
I can only hope. Yeah, in that case, that particular worry about sequels can be sidestepped by doing something like that. Whereas, you know, these other mechanical issues can't really. So.
Right. Yeah, they do that. They do that a lot in animes. Like they'll do like the first season of an anime, and then if it does really well, even though it's like wrapped up perfectly and like with a bow tie and everything, and it's a perfect ending, they'll just like, oh, this one did really well. Let's cash it in and make a whole new one, and they'll tear that story right back open.
Totally.
And I'm looking at you, Sword Art Online. I'm looking right at you.
I don't know a lot of anime.
This is not an anime podcast. So let's move forward.
Death Note. I'm just gonna say Death Note.
Oh yeah, Death Note also, like that first season was incredible, and they were like, oh, it was so good. Let's tear it open and let's see what we can get out of it. See how much money is in there.
Yeah,
so
right.
Let me ask you guys a really heavy question. Do we think the development of sequels is kind of like, I guess, encroaching on different studios' abilities to create like a new IP altogether?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it can. And I'll give you two examples that have me excited. If there had been another Killzone in development today, we would not tomorrow have Horizon Zero Dawn coming out. So that's a new IP that's coming out from a studio who has a very established franchise, but instead of doing yet another fucking Killzone, they're doing something different. That's exciting.
Right.
And so if that's true, then I think the opposite must be true, where it's like every sequel that does get produced means like, you know, the alternative, a new IP, a new franchise didn't get created. And, you know, some, like we talked about whether or not it's warranted. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I mean, at least for me, new stuff is always more exciting. That's my opinion.
I feel like this way with freaking Epic Games, right? They came out with Gears of War,
Yep.
And now they're never going back to Unreal Tournament. I know that's like another sequel.
Yeah.
But their first sequel is getting into the way of the sequel that I want them to do.
That's funny. Yeah.
Right?
That's
I feel
funny.
like that was, I don't know. This is kind of speculation on my part. I feel like that was one of the reasons Cliff Bleszinski, he was one of the main guys in Epic Games that really like pushed Gears of War and Unreal Tournament, and like made them what they are. Kind of, he left to do his own thing, and I felt like that was because he was being pushed into doing all these Gears of War games all the time. I mean, they're moving away now. We have Paragon, which isn't looking so good, but I think I totally agree with the idea that sequels make money, so they're kind of hired by the developer, especially in Gears of War case, because Epic is owned by Xbox, or it had a deal with Xbox to just keep pushing their sequels,
totally.
And not doing anything new.
I think that
I don't think it has. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think that this struggle always exists in all forms of media, like movies, television, and video games, where like your executives want a sequel because it's less risk, and less risk means more money, and creators often want to explore new territory. So you're always gonna kind of have these conflicting interests, I think, and no matter what.
Right, and well, you also have that love child kind of mentality too, where I mean, like look at Blizzard, right? This is the first time in a long time we've gotten a new IP from them.
Yeah.
You know, Overwatch coming out, that's a whole new IP, and we've had Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, Warcraft 3 Force and Throne, just smattering of World of Warcraft expansions, and those are essentially sequels to that style of game. If you
to the narrative, at least, yeah,
to the narrative, like it's and to the game, it's adding new mechanics, it's adding new features.
I'd call it a different genre, but
the RTS ones at least,
right? Yeah. I could see an argument there, but regardless, like they've been doing that over and over again. Then you have Diablo 3, and it's just like those are almost like especially with Blizzard, like those are their love child. So they're trying to make sure that they're taking care of them. You know, they're releasing patches for them. I know that's a recent development, but still. So I think that you also have that mentality as well behind it. But in Blizzard's case, it definitely does stop them from creating new IPs. I mean, this is the first new IP we've seen since, well, I guess what was the last one? Diablo, right? Diablo would have been the newest IP.
Jesus.
Well, I guess World of Warcraft doesn't really.
It's not a new IP, right?
That's not a new IP. That's Warcraft. Yeah. So I think Diablo is their newest.
Yeah, the newest IP since Diablo has just finally come out.
Right.
And so that's a classic example of, that sequelitis feeling encroaching on them. And Blizzard's an incredible.
But I wonder if that was just not their sequelitis, but something that they enjoyed, like that company enjoyed making the games that they were making. They didn't want to necessarily be like, oh, we need to make these sequels because it's going to make us money. It was kind of like, hey,
maybe a bit of both, but I think definitely more than a typical studio. Blizzard definitely like marches to the beat of its own drum, and we want to make an FPS, so we're gonna make a fucking glorious FPS that everybody loves. You know, it's like they do what they want, and it's funny. Right. I mean, even Hearthstone was just almost kind of like, I'm not gonna say it was like a hackathon, but that was just like a small, hey, let's see what we can do given a little bit of time. Some dudes threw it together, and now I want to say that's got to be one of their most money-making games that they have.
Oh, yeah. Now. I would 100% agree there.
If I remember, there was just like a group of like 5 dudes who were into card games in the office, and they're like, hey, if we try and make a WoW card, like a Warcraft card game, could we do that? And they're like, yeah, go try and make it as a side project.
It did.
And that's how it turned out.
Yeah.
I think that they were trying to improve upon the failing WoW trading card game.
Yeah, the paper card game.
Oh,
the paper card game, because the paper card game came out and tried to fight the Magic the Gathering, and the paper card game played very much like Hearthstone.
Right?
Yeah, it played very much like it.
The impetus of the project wasn't like, oh man, we got to save some money and like write that failing card game ship. It was like let's see what we can do, and it's like, holy shit, what do we have? What do we do with all these dollar bills? So
fucking make Overwatch. That's
right. Another example I wanted to throw out there. Another one of those. If there had been a Joe Danger 3, have you guys even heard of Joe Danger? Right.
I've heard of that, but
Mitch,
I don't know.
We lost you on your mic, so fix your mic while we're talking about it. If there had been no Joe Danger 3,
Joe Danger 3.
There you go, Mitch. There would be no No Man's Sky coming out. So
that. Dakota.
Yeah.
Come on. Don't mention No Man's Sky.
Hand up.
Just
Hand
back
up. What's today's date? The 17th?
The 18th. It's the 18th now.
Oh, for
yeah,
you
we're
guys.
on East
You
Coast.
guys are in
We're in the future.
Yeah, we have flying cars over here.
1
No,
month,
we
Mitch.
decided to stop them because we were so bored of them already, so you won't ever see them.
All right, maybe tomorrow I'll get the vehicle of tomorrow. 1 month from now, No Man's Sky. So yeah, I to answer the question, yes, I think that sequels are always going to impede the development of new, fresh ideas. Hopefully, I mean, we're not at a risk of like seeing the end of original IPs. There's going to be plenty more. Sometimes we have to sit through a sequel that we don't ask for, like Last of Us 2. But you still got to put your faith in the developer that they're going to do the best. And, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. A really interesting example, I didn't know where to bring this up because we got a couple in all of our segments, but Assassin's Creed is a very strange beast where the first one was not great. A lot of people consider the second one as the best. And then it's like, man, they are so hit and miss with that franchise. The third one was ass. Then I think Black Flag came after that, and that game was incredible. But I think, I don't know if you guys know anything about Black Flag. I think that it's like Ubisoft wanted to make a fucking sweet pirate game, and they did. The pirating in that game is awesome. It does not need to be an Assassin's Creed game at all. That could have been a brand new IP, but I think that I expect that their hands were forced. They're like, no, this is going to be in our franchise that everybody knows the name of. And so it is. And, the parts about that game I hate the most are the Assassin's Creed parts. And the pirating is so fucking awesome.
A lot of people were saying that, speculating that like they just wanted to make a pirate game. And we're just like, well, we have to make an Assassin's Creed game. Let's make a pirate one.
I definitely think that that's what's up. And I think that there's rumor and speculation that the next Assassin's Creed is in the same boat, pirates. Where like I think many years ago there was like some leaked screens of a supposed new IP from Ubisoft, and it was set like in an Egyptian setting, time and era, time and place, and then now people are speculating that the next Assassin's Creed is basically going to be that IP just rolled into the Assassin's Creed franchise. So they're in a strange spot.
All right, I'm done talking about shitty sequels. Let's talk about some sequels. Are there any that you would actually want to see? And I'm just going to go ahead and table Half-Life 3.
Yeah. That's put that off. There's rumors today. Some rumors came out that there is going to be a release date released, and these are apparently the most rumors that people believe. It's all over the place.
Really?
I am not going to believe a single thing about Half-Life 3.
I don't believe anything.
And so Gabe comes out himself and says it with his Gabe mouth. Then I will believe it. But until I hear it out of his Gabe mouth, then I'm
from the mouth of Gabes.
From the mouth of Gabes, otherwise I don't care.
Right on. I mean, for me, no, I don't really. I'm not cross my fingers for another iteration of Pac-Man, Mitch. So I want to see new stuff. I want to see No Man's Sky. I want to see Horizon Zero Dawn. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I'm into some new IPs too. I'm not really looking forward to any sequels right now.
You know what? You know what sequel I really want to see, but it will never be what I want it to be? Jet Force Gemini. Have you guys ever played that or heard of that?
I've heard of it, but tell me about it.
It's a game made by Rare. The guys who did the old Donkey Kongs, Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah. That old team must not be together since they were bought by Microsoft. That was like the saddest day in my youth to realize that like a company could be bought out by another company.
Part of the man.
But Jet Force Gemini was a game where you played as like a brother, like a twin, like a brother and a sister, and then their dog, right? And each character played differently, and they all like got guns and like shot, and the guns like looked different. Like the brother, he'd get this like laser, and it kind of looked like a laser rifle.
Oh, I played this game.
Would look like a smaller laser rifle, and the dog would have the same laser rifle on his back. Like, it was so good. You had to play it as all three characters and go through this giant world, and like the bad guys were all ants, like they were bugs.
Yeah,
it was phenomenal, and it was such a good world, and the action was so good. Like, man, I would love to see Jet Force Gemini.
Jet Force Gemini 2. We want to see it. Rare, if you're listening, come on, man.
Jet Force Gemini. Another game I'd want to see. looking through a small list of games I have here. Vanquish. This was a game that a lot of people played. I think I made you play it, Mitch. It was on Xbox 360 only. It looked gorgeous. It was such a beautiful, like, futuristic, like, shooter game. It was kind of like a mix of Gears of War and Devil May Cry. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Third-person shooter, fantastic, ended on a cliffhanger like no other. Man, if that game was great.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree.
And lastly, I'd say Bulletstorm. Did you guys play Bulletstorm?
I think you showed me Bulletstorm.
Dude,
is that the guy where he's sliding on the ground with a gun on his foot?
Yeah!
Yeah, I played this game.
Bulletstorm was a game. Not a lot of people liked it. I liked it because it was like arcadey. It was produced by Epic Games, but also made by People May Fly. They did a lot of I forget. They made a really famous shooter. I forget the name of now. But it was a good game. But you went through the levels. The character was kind of like snarky and sarcastic. And it was kind of funny. But the game was like you had to chain together the kills with your ridiculous guns. Like you had a cannonball gun that would like explode and knock people around. And then you had like a whip, like an electric whip. So you'd like pull people and then you'd like kick them into like a cactus and try and chain all these ridiculous ways to kill people together and like hit somebody with like a sticky grenade and then kick them into a group of guys to explode a barrel into somebody else.
Chaining them together, because we got it. You didn't need to keep going. Chaining them
you have
together.
to keep going. You have to keep going. The chains were...
We're not playing Bulletstorm, Chris. Calm down. We're not playing Bulletstorm right now.
And that is another game that ended on a cliffhanger. I'd love to see a Bulletstorm, a second Bulletstorm.
All right, guys. I'm gonna ask you a very serious question right now. What is your favorite sequel of all time? We're just gonna do
one.
Just one. We're too
no
long.
Peakest to weakest. I just want your peakest. Dakota.
The peakest. All right, my peakest. Only because I don't know. Is it my favorite sequel of all time? It's gotta be. And here's an interesting thing. I've never even played the first title, or the title, the mod that inspired the first title. And this was the one that I said at the top of the show has some really weird crossover with remake, reboot, whatever. I'm talking about none other than Team Fortress 2.
Yeah.
Now, Team Fortress 2 is bizarre, right? It's a very strange beast in the world of sequels and remakes because it's the sequel to a game that was developed simultaneous to it, which was itself an implementation of a mod on a different engine. So Team Fortress Classic was an adaptation of Team Fortress, which was a Quake mod, I think. And so, but Team Fortress Classic was developed side by side with Team Fortress 2. And TF2 just took 10 years or whatever to make. I think they first announced it in like 99 or some dumb shit like that. And it looked nothing like it does now. Like, because after they worked on it for a couple of years, they started over and they made the game that we know and love now, which is like, which for all intents and purposes is nothing like Team Fortress Classic, other than the fact that it's a class-based shooter. Aside from that, like the characters, all the personality that's in this game, that only exists in TF2. Yeah. And so, it's a very unique example of a sequel. It kind of stands on its own. I think that this game, more than any other, a vast majority of the players have never even played the original or the mod.
I've never played the original.
I've never
played the original. I never played the mod, and I played the shit out of Team Fortress.
Yeah. So TF2, definitely. I've got bajillion hours. I think one day you and I, Mitch, compared our hours, and we are.
Do it right now. Let's do it on air.
I don't have Steam open.
I got it.
All right, I'll open Steam. Several hundred hours, and I think you had more than me for sure.
661 hours.
661. Wow. Chris, did you ever play Team Fortress 2?
I played it a lot until they added weapons.
Until they started adding like a bunch of different weapons?
Yeah.
All right.
I did play it a bunch.
I was stalling for time.
I have 130 hours.
130
hours.
Chris,
I played 3 times as much as you. No,
yeah,
4 times as much.
Let's not talk about WoW, though.
And I'm right in the middle. I have 476 hours.
All right. I fucking so much Team Fortress 2. All right, so, Christopher, your favorite sequel.
You go. I always go first.
Exactly. So now you're going second. Damn it.
Well, it's hard. You go first because I can't think. I thought we were going to do top 3.
So
No,
pick
'cause
the
mine-
one that's
honestly,
at the top of your list.
Mine's a real quick wrap up because I'm not actually going to talk about it, Chris. Go ahead.
Oh, I guess there's God damn it. I guess Warcraft 3.
Okay.
Which one?
Warcraft 3.
Yeah.
Warcraft 3.
Which
That's-
one?
The base game. He's asking you if you mean Frozen
The Reign of
Throne or
Chaos
not.
or the Frozen Throne? There were 2.
One's an expansion.
No, that's expansion. That's still the same game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair.
So Warcraft 3. I felt like I'm gonna take off Half-Life 2 and Ocarina of Time because to me those are like phenomena of their own. I'm not gonna consider them sequels.
Half-Life
like-
2. Shout out.
Yeah. Warcraft 3 did something. It changed so much in the real-time strategy space. I felt like it. I played the original Warcraft, the first one.
Yeah.
And this added like so much feeling to it.
It
I played
changed the
Command
game.
and Conquer. It changed the game. Like I played Command and Conquer, and that was always fun. But it was like, okay, I'm moving armies around. But in Warcraft 3, they added such a strong story element to it, where you actually felt connected to the armies and stuff you were moving around. They added like the hero units with like abilities and stuff.
Yeah.
And they had a story that you like saw from a top-down view and you were in command and felt like you were part of seeing like this massive war unfold. I don't know. They did RTS. They changed the RTS game.
Yeah, that's
felt.
interesting.
They
They
really
really, they really had a huge focus on narrative. I wonder if that's like when Chris Metzen started to really drive like game development in that way. Because I know that he's the story guy. I'm pretty sure. I think that he's got a heavy hand in the Overwatch narrative and everything that's becoming. But yeah, it's kind of divisive actually gameplay wise. There's a lot of people that think that Warcraft 3 did the game disservice insofar as making it, because the gameplay is more focused on the hero unit. It became an RTS with a heavy focus on the hero and less focus on the macro armies. Right. I mean, but it definitely stands out in the series.
I mean, it separated itself from StarCraft in that way too, which I kind of like because
yeah,
StarCraft
they
and
became
Warcraft
very
were
distinct.
almost the similar game,
Yep.
and then they introduced the hero units, and it's like, okay, well now you have 2 completely different games.
Right.
Yeah.
Furthermore, paved the way for Dota, so no one can complain.
Dota was on my list. If we had done a top 3, Dota 2 was on my list.
Dota 2, yeah, Dota 2 is up there. It's pretty good. For me, as Chris said, if I'm borrowing like the classics, the pinnacles, the quintessentials, like Final Fantasy X, Half-Life 2, Portal 2, my favorite sequel of all time, a game I've played way too many times, a game that I will probably play more in my lifetime, Mega Man X. That game is
that's good.
Fucking perfect. It's so perfect that so many people have written about how perfect this game is that there's a specific video that I want you to watch.
Yeah, I know. You always talk about this video.
I always talk about this video.
You talked about this before on the cast, too.
It's so perfect, and it explains everything I feel about Mega Man X in one condensed 20-minute video. It's by
Real condensed.
something Raptor, whatever his name is, but it's called Sequelitis. You just type in Sequelitis and Mega Man X, and you will see it. He just basically breaks down the original Mega Man versus Mega Man X and why Mega Man X was like the perfect sequel. And he's going to say everything that I want to say about Mega Man X better than I ever could.
Cool.
Cool. On that note, we talked about some sequels. We talked about why they are good, when they can be fucking terrible. Let's move on to the sequel of our show, the MetaBet. It's not really a sequel. It's like the suffix, but whatever.
Yeah, Chris reached in for no. Don't you ever interrupt the music, Chris.
Hey, I cut myself off. It sounded like an edited cut.
Yeah, that's good.
That's how I have control of my body.
All right, for those that don't know, the MetaBet is the game where we bet on the Metacritic score of an upcoming video game. Last week, I won, which means Mitch and Chris had to suffer some sort of video game punishment or stipulation. We had the guys play a little bit of Hearthstone. They did a rando deck face-off. You know, they went to make their decks, had the game generate all 30 cards, and went Hearthstone boy fight, mano y mano. Guys, tell me about it.
Well, I'm going to start.
Chris, you
I
talk
didn't
about it
suffer at all.
Oh, no.
You talk about it 'cause I'm hurting right now.
We played. There's going to be a video up soon. It's just quick 15-minute video of our games. If you could call them that. They were complete slaughter.
Games. They weren't even games. So
I
my
destroyed Mitch.
decks were so
Spoiler.
good. Like I have, and this isn't even
Apparently not.
this isn't even like a smack against Chris. It's just I play more Hearthstone than he does, so I have more cards than he does.
Right.
So my decks were inherently better than his. However, the Hearthstone gods, the old gods that we're whispering about, they fucking just decided to. I mulligan and I just get. I remember there was one game that you'll see it that I mulliganed like 6-drop, 6-drop, 7-drop, and what did I get? 6-drop, 6-drop, 5-drop, and what did Chris get? Coin out a knife juggler, play minion, play minion, play minion,
Oh
play
my
minion, play minion. Just like every fucking game, both games, and it happened the same way. I just kept not being able to stabilize because I drew every card in my hand.
Post nerf knife juggler, still doing work, still doing plenty of work.
You can't nerf that card unless you get rid of it.
Right, and it's good. It's good. It serves its purpose. Well, that's good stuff. I can't wait to see the footage.
So, Chris, as a punishment, he made me do an arena all left.
Oh, nice!
And
I threw it right back at him.
I did a priest arena with all left.
Yeah.
And I got 3 wins. So honestly, I'm surprised because the deck was absolute trash.
Yeah.
It was.
I think
pretty
his draft is on the video, but not his games.
Oh yeah, you watched me draft the deck in the video too. You'll see how absolutely bad it was.
Nice.
But I did get a holy note, so that was sweet.
That's good. That's good. A friend of mine just drafted a deck. He showed it to me. The dude almost drafted a goddamn shaman standard deck. I was like looking at it. He's like,
the whole deck is commons and uncommons.
He's like, I'm playing arena right now. I'm like, cool. He's like, I'm streaming. So he's like, okay, I'll watch. And he put it up, and I glanced over. I'm like, yeah. And I kind of nod to myself, and I go, wait, didn't he say arena? And I look back over, and he's got like trogs. He's got flame juggler. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And he's got 2 faceless, 2 what's the 5/5 taunt that gets cheaper? Something of the depth.
Oh, it's thing from below.
Thing from below. Yeah, two things. I was like, dude, you just drafted the standard deck. Kind of reminded me of Magic in that way. All right, guys. Last week, recapping, we bet on, speaking of sequels or remakes, Doom for the PlayStation 4. To recap the scores, peakest to weakest, Chris was up top with 81. I was in the middle with 80. Mitch down low, 77. Today, based on 28 critics, Doom 4 for the PlayStation 4 has a Metacritic score of 83, making Chris the winner and me and Mitch the loser.
Chris, we were talking about this at dinner. We were talking about how like great reviews the game was getting because
we were kind of wrong
about
the
game.
One.
Yeah, well, because everything we knew about the game was from the multiplayer, but apparently the single player is fucking tits.
Yes, true.
So Good point. Chris, remember when you even said you were like, I wanted to go a little lower on this one.
Yeah.
So pissed.
Yeah.
And here you are winning the meta bet. Son of a bitch.
Any lower and I would have won.
Last time I won a fucking. I don't remember the last time I won a meta bet. I don't think I've won it in like a month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right, Chris, do you have any ideas for Mitch and I?
Yeah, I do have an idea.
Okay.
My idea is this is going to be a single player challenge.
Okay.
And in the spirit of sequels,
oh dear Lord God,
Dakota.
Oh no.
I know what's happening right now.
I know what's happening.
Dakota.
I know what's happening.
Dakota,
guess what you're gonna get to do finally?
Go on, Chris.
You're gonna
a piece of shit.
You're going to play Half-Life 2.
Woo! So am I playing episode 2 or
No, the Half-Life 2.
Half-Life 2. I've never played Half-Life 2. Ever. I will play it now.
No. Yeah. This is I'm so happy. You have to play Half-Life 2.
How long have you, because it's been a while since Chris won. Have you been sitting on this one for a while?
No, I've been thinking about a way to put it in here, and I thought this was a great time. I just thought of it.
Let's play it where like I have to be blindfolded and he has to tell me what to do. He has to walk me through the game.
Oh my God.
Like I'm playing it, but I'm not looking, and he has to tell me where to go.
No, because he's got to be able to play it. That is the best idea I've heard in a long time. And if it was a game you
if it was any other time.
Yeah, if it was any other time, like
so we'll save it. We'll save
viewers and listeners, put that in the bank.
That's good.
We're gonna keep that. That's phenomenal.
Blindfolded. Wow. That reminds me. Have you guys heard about the blind dude that plays WoW? He raids. He raids decent content. Not not mythic, but the middle level. He raids.
Really?
He's blind and he puts his character on follow. He's a shaman. He follows his DK buddy, and his DK and him are like in a separate voice channel, and he's like telling him, all right, now we're at this phase of the fight, and the blind dude, knows his rotation and shit, so he's casting his spells and things like that, but he has no control over his movement, and he just tags along this other dude. We could do
Holy
it.
shit, that's fucking amazing.
Really cool.
Yeah, very cool. All right.
Yo, shout out to that fucking Death Knight for being the coolest motherfucker in the world.
That's a bro.
Just like,
yeah, dude.
The absolutely coolest kid in the world.
Yeah,
that guy's a bro for real.
So what about
so
Mitch?
For Mitch? Now, Mitch already played Half-Life 2.
It has to be Half-Life 2 based. Come on.
It does. Does it have to be Half-Life 2 based?
Come on. We're both playing Half-Life 2. Make me do something stupid in Half-Life 2. Make me do that Ravenholm achievement. I did that once and it was miserable.
What achievement haven't you done in Half-Life 2?
I will pull it up right now and let you know.
Actually, let me pull up Half-Life 2. What's the achievement nobody's gotten? That's the one I want you to do.
Oh God!
You know how it shows like the achievements that are like
based on percentage of.
Yeah, let me see. I'm going down to percentage.
I mean, the Ravenholm achievement was really, really difficult. I'm pretty sure that's one of the hardest ones. It's called Zombie Chopper.
Global achievement stats.
It's so if you don't know, Zombie Chopper is you have to play through the entire level of Ravenholm, which is like the zombie level, and you can only use the gravity.
Guys, never played the game.
Yeah. No, Mitch.
Are you fucking kidding me? You know there's zombies.
No, I didn't. I didn't know.
You didn't know there was zombies.
I don't know shit about this game, dude.
Yeah, don't. It's not even real zombies. Don't
Gordon
worry about
Freeman.
It.
That's all I know.
Yeah. So
Mitch,
Mitch,
Morgan Freeman.
No. The hardest one, the one that only 1.5% of all players have, is called Lambda Locator, which is you have to find all the Lambda caches.
I already have that one.
Do you have that?
Yeah. I'll do it again.
Achievement.
You have that one?
Mitch just won his Metabit challenge.
Yeah, I'm done. Win.
Great job, bro.
See ya.
Yeah, I did that one a long time ago. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna actually have to look. I'm looking for it right now. Hold on, because I'm pretty sure I did every achievement in Half-Life 2.
Jesus.
Like that's one of my favorite games, and I'm pretty sure I went through and did all the achievements. Hold on, let me look.
All right, we're getting a little long in the tooth, so you guys.
I know we're getting long in the tooth. We'll find me one. Oh, I haven't done it. I did do this though, but it didn't give it to me. So okay, I'll do Lambda Locator. I did this one, but it apparently didn't register. So okay, Lambda Locator.
Mitch's Steam is bugged.
Yeah, that's what it is, man. But I have
hacks.
two that I did that I didn't apparently do.
All right,
okay.
so
we're betting on this week.
This week, which means that 1 week from now, we are going to bet.
Let's hope that's really there
on Overwatch.
I don't know if that. No, I don't think that will be reviewed right away because it's a multiplayer only game. People are going to have to.
We're gonna go for it because if it's just wrong to not bet on this game.
I do not lose next week's match.
Okay, that's fair. Since you're calling it now, that's fair. However,
I also call it
no.
Too late.
First come, first serve. First come, first serve.
I also agree with Chris.
So Overwatch comes out in a week from today, the 24th of May, not March. So guys, this is an odd case. Usually we bet on the PS4 versions of a game. Do you want to bet on PS4 or PC?
We're betting on PC. Come on.
PC.
This is a no-brainer.
I left that as an open question. Yeah, Blizzard's home turf. I've got my number written down in chat. Go ahead and do the same and tell me when you're ready.
Are you reading chat again now? Are we back to you reading Twitch chat?
I am. I'm still playing Uncharted 4 and enjoying it quite a bit. But
why didn't you bring that up at all in this game? In this podcast, by the way.
I had it written down and we just talked about so much. Yes, the whole reason we did this episode was because of Uncharted 4. Yeah.
This is the first time we've discussed Uncharted 4, and the reason we're doing this episode is because of Uncharted 4. So, an hour and 15 minutes in, we've discussed the reason for the episode.
Okay.
There's some really interesting things to say about it too. Yay, definitely yay, but
okay.
I'll say like 2 minutes on it since we brought it up. Uncharted 4 is a very interesting because it's a great game. They do storytelling better than anybody in the console space for sure, and maybe anybody, period. The only rivals I could see are maybe how Blizzard's been telling stories lately. That said, the game, as far as gameplay is concerned, is not special. It's just not. It's third-person shooting, cover shooter. And it's not special in any way. You do some of that, and you do some jumping from ledge to ledge. It's not revolutionary.
Like
There's
Uncharted
nothing
2 and
exciting about it.
Something I've always liked from being a viewer, I've never actually played, is the animation styles. Like I love how like characters really look like they're interacting.
It
like,
is
dodge.
So yeah, the gameplay mechanics specifically that I mentioned are the only bad thing you can say about the game. Everything else, the quality of the narrative, the quality of the animations, the way it looks. I mean, you can do things that look fucking incredible. They're just not very hard or interesting mechanically to perform. So that's Uncharted 4.
The voice acting also.
Voice acting
incredible.
is through the roof. The game is a movie. I mean, the game is a movie that you play. I don't think it's any less of a video game for it, but it's not a terribly interesting gameplay. That's it. But it's a fucking fabulous game, nonetheless.
Right, so there it is. There it is.
Uncharted
An
4.
hour and 15 minutes in. There it is. All right, guys. I have my number. I have my number in
out.
chat.
Mine's in chat as well. Chris, you good?
Mine's in chat.
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Wow. Oh my god.
All right, so we almost all three tied.
We almost had a triple threat. Oh my god.
So, God, what would we have done? So, from peakest to weakest, myself and Chris are both up top with 92, and Mitch is 1 point below us with 91.
You know what's crazy is I literally, while you were discussing Uncharted 2, I had 92 in there, and I went, 91. I literally had 92, and I was like, wait, you were talking about Uncharted, and I was like, sitting there thinking, I was listening to you, I was like, no, 92 is way too high. 91 is perfect.
Well, we're going to see. Obviously, we all believe in this game. This game is incredible.
Yeah. We've played it a lot, so we have kind of like a bias, but the game is incredible. I mean, it's a Blizzard game. Blizzard has not let me down.
But my standard, I don't know the lasting appeal. Like, I feel like people are going to start complaining very early into the game.
You know what the lasting appeal is going to look like? 476 hours, 600 plus hours. Yeah. It's very similar to TF2.
I hope so.
That's
it's a great game. I'm buying it because I know that they're going to keep up with the with the updates and everything.
Yeah. Free heroes, free maps, everything from this point forward is free.
Maybe after the first month, people are going to go like, okay, we play the same couple maps because Blizzard doesn't offer a lot of leeway that a lot of their first-person shooters, similar like TF2, which offers people to join like user-made maps and have really weird kind of team compositions, like like 40 on 40, like weird.
That's true. Hey, who knows? Maybe it's going to go the way that StarCraft, Warcraft have done. They'll start to open it up for the modding scene. They've been open to that in the past. Maybe they will again. That would be quite interesting.
It's a really polished game. I love the way it plays, and I wouldn't mind, playing for as much as I do. But I see the internet getting a little restless with it in the future.
We're a little bit more needy these days than we used to be, aren't we? Gamers, we're more needy than we ever have been.
I think we could talk about this later, but progression systems have really made an impact.
Hey, maybe next week.
Yeah. Maybe next week. Well, as always, Analog Stick Radio is brought to you by BitCultures. BitCultures is a site that features video game reviews, opinion pieces, and digital media, just like this show that you're listening to right now. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you stop on by bitcultures.com. If you want to reach out to us here at Analog Stick Radio, you can hit us up at analogstickradio@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at ASR Podcast. We welcome any and all tweets, any and all treats, either one.
Scooby Snacks.
Analog Stick Radio records every single Tuesday night right here on twitch.tv. So if you're watching, you are already here. But if you're listening, you can come hang out with us. You can see me get shorter, see Chris get taller, whichever one happens.
Short.
We record every single Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific. Well, actually, for the next 5 weeks, it's going to be 8:30 p.m. Pacific and 11:30 p.m. Eastern. And then we're published the following Thursday to all your favorite podcast trackers. Any parting words, gentlemen?
Oh my God, yeah. I guess since we're later, it's past 12 here, so don't feed your mogwais.
Ooh,
do not feed your mogwais because they will turn into.
Well, hold on. So if Dakota feeds his mogwai, it's 12 here.
What happens? Who knows?
Well, so if he feeds his mogwai and then ships it over to us, it will be a gremlin when it gets here.
Oh my God.
All right, guys. Well, for myself, Chris, Dakota, I've been Mitch. This has been Analog Stick Radio. Thank you for tuning in.
Good luck.
See ya.
Be careful.